Maps are meant to show us the world as it is. Solid, reliable, real. They depict mountains, rivers, oceans, and of course, islands. But what if some of those islands never actually existed? For centuries, explorers and sailors reported seeing land where, as far as we know today, none exists. Many of these imagined islands were drawn onto maps, given unique names, and even claimed by entire nations. Some were described as lush and thriving with life, home to strange plants and unknown creatures. Others were whispered about fearfully in dark taverns, cursed places that swallowed ships whole. Yet as time went by and mapping grew increasingly accurate, something curious occurred. These islands, some of which had appeared on maps for hundreds of years, began to vanish. They were quietly erased, as if they'd never existed at all. Some were honest mistakes, shadows on horizon mistaken for land, or low-lying reefs appearing and disappearing with the tides. Others were outright fabrications, hoaxes created by ambitious explorers eager to make a name for themselves. Yet then there are the truly strange cases. The islands recorded by multiple ships, mapped by different nations and sighted repeatedly over the centuries. And still, when modern explorers finally sought them out, they discovered nothing but the open ocean. Throughout history, the seas have whispered stories of places that never existed, lands conjured by fear, hope, or pure imagination. These mythical islands grew into legends etched onto maps, steering sailors off their true course and captivating explorers' imaginations. Their names turned into rallying cries for expeditions, obsessions for kings, and precious treasures for cartographers who dared to dream of worlds beyond the known horizon. In the chilly expanse of the South Atlantic, sailors swore they glimpsed Isla San Borondon, a mystical island with a troublesome habit of vanishing into thin air. Descriptions varied widely. Some spoke of towering cliffs and lush, verdant forests, while others claimed they had seen bizarre creatures stalking its shores. It was said to drift between worlds, visible one moment, gone the next, like a mocking illusion conjured by the sea itself. Some even claimed to have actually set foot on its elusive shores. The island took its name from Saint Brendan, who reportedly landed there in 512 AD, along with 14 monks, staying for 15 mysterious days. Locals feared the island, believing it cursed or bewitched, always slipping just beyond humanity's reach. Yet still, the hopeful and the adventurous continued to venture forth, yearning for a glimpse of the impossible. And then there's Antilla, the Isle of Seven Cities. Its legends began in desperation. As the Moors swept across the Iberian Peninsula, 7 Christian bishops determined to preserve their beliefs and way of life fled into the wild Atlantic. According to the story, they created a utopian paradise on a distant island, each bishop ruling over his own city of golden splendor. Maps from the 15th century confidently marked the island, placing it far to the west, off the coast of Portugal. Navigators searched tirelessly, attracted by visions of untouched riches and sacred refuge. Yet no ships ever reached its shores. Attila became a ghost, growing more powerful as myth than any kingdom ever built from stone and steel. One of the most fascinating stories was that of Buss Island, a shadowy smear of land which shouldn't have existed, but somehow did, at least for a time. In 1578, the crew of the Emmanuel, a small whaling ship out of England, first caught sight of it. Captain James Newton scribbled notes in his log describing rich, fertile terrain where trees swayed gently under brisk Arctic winds. Yet no matter how many times they tried to approach, the island seemed to drift away like a ghost. For years afterward, Buss Island stubbornly continued to appear on maps. Explorers who claimed to have glimpsed it spoke of lush shores and rolling hills, an unexpected oasis amid the icy waters between Greenland and Canada. Dreams of untapped wealth and fresh hunting grounds drove expeditions for decades. However, each journey ended only in frustration. Captains excitedly reported seeing land just beyond the horizon, only to watch it vanish in the blink of an eye. Some said it was the sea that swallowed it. Others whispered of a cursed island, playing tricks on sailors' minds. By the 1800s, cartographers had begun to scratch their heads, gradually erasing Buss Island from their maps. It turns out it was nothing more than a myth, a salty tale, swapped around in taverns. Early explorers lacked GPS, satellite imagery, or even accurate longitudinal measurements. They depended instead on compasses, stars, and rough estimates of distances. If a sailor believed he'd spotted land on the horizon, that was often evidence enough for mapmakers back home. A swift sketch, a name picked from legend, and just like that, an island was born. Some of these phantom islands were merely errors, misidentified landmasses or inaccuracies that took centuries to correct. Others arose from mirages, optical illusions, or even floating icebergs mistaken for stable ground. A Occasionally, islands genuinely existed for some time, only to later vanish beneath the waves or simply erode away. Take Sandy Island. Reportedly first seen by Captain Cook in 1774. For over 200 years, it appeared on maps of the South Pacific, marked as a small landmass near New Caledonia. It even made its way onto Google Earth. However, in 2012, an Australian research team set sail to verify its existence and instead found absolutely nothing. No land, no reef, just endless ocean where the island was supposed to be. Upon their return, Sandy Island was promptly removed from modern maps. Some suggest it might have originated from an incorrect amendment to the Cook Islands, located at the same latitude. Others propose it might have been an unusual raft of pumice formed by an underwater volcanic eruption, eventually drifting away. Or was it always simply an illusion, a mistake replicated so many times that it was finally accepted as fact? Similarly intriguing is the story of Bemasia, a supposed island located in the Gulf of Mexico that mysteriously vanished. First appearing on maps as early as the 16th century, it left no trace behind today. Some argue that Bemasia was nothing but a cartographic error from the very beginning. Yet others entertain a far more extraordinary theory, that Bemasia was deliberately erased. Let me explain. The Gulf of Mexico, I suppose we should, the Gulf of America, is rich in oil and natural resources. I'm going to call it the Gulf of Mexico. I'm not American, and it's silly. And under international law, territorial claims depended greatly on land boundaries. Had Bemasia actually existed, it could have provided Mexico with a legal claim to certain oil fields. Some conspiracy theorists speculate that the island was deliberately erased from maps to alter political boundaries. And that sounds absurd, but even today, no one has fully explained why, for centuries, so many maps depicted an island that apparently never existed. And then there's Isla San Juan, an island reportedly discovered by Spanish explorers off the coast of Chile in the 16th century. It appeared consistently on maps for some 300 years before suddenly vanishing. Ships that went searching for it in the 19th century found nothing. Did it sink? Was it misidentified? Or similar to Sandy Island, was it simply an error that persisted far longer than it should have? Thule was an ancient island first recorded by Greek explorers in the 4th century BC. According to Pytheas, a prominent Greek geographer, Thule lay far to the north of Britain, beyond the outer edge of the known world. He described it as a misty and frozen land, where the sun never fully set during the summer months and never fully rose during the winter, a description strikingly reminiscent of Iceland or Norway. Later explorers, however, never found the exact island Pytheas described. Some scholars suggest that Thule was probably Iceland, Greenland, or the Faroe Islands, which Pytheas may have misidentified due to his rough calculations. Others propose that Thule might have been an actual landmass, one that's since disappeared. The reality is that early map makers did not have the luxury of verifying their work. When one cartographer recorded an island, others simply copied it without scrutiny. As a result, mistakes easily spread, transforming illusions into recognized landmarks and turning errors into established facts. Now, some of these phantom islands were corrected centuries later, wiped from maps as our knowledge of geography improved. Yet others remain mysteries, leaving behind only the lingering question of did they ever exist at all? Now, not every phantom island emerged from a simple mistake. Some were deliberate fabrications, conceived for fame, for power, or just outright deception. During the age of exploration, the unknown world served as a blank canvas. For those eager to exploit it, an island that didn't exist could be just as valuable as one that did. Explorers have always been rewarded for discovery. The more land a nation claimed, the greater its prestige, funding, and influence. At times, this meant faking discoveries to gain favor with kings and governments. Take the Isle of Demons, for example. First reported in the 1500s, this supposed island off the coast of Newfoundland was said to be cursed, home to terrifying creatures and evil spirits tormenting sailors. Tales circulated of ships venturing too close never to return. For over a century, the island even appeared on maps, cautioning mariners to steer clear. But did it ever truly exist? It's not very likely, actually. Many historians believe it was entirely fabricated, possibly invented by cartographers seeking to make their maps a bit more exciting, or by sailors trying to explain why certain ships mysteriously disappeared during storms. Over time, reality blurred with legends, and the Isle of Demons became firmly rooted in maritime folklore. And then there's Aurora Island, supposedly located in the South Atlantic Ocean. In 1767, the Spanish ship Aurora claimed to have discovered a long mountainous island in the open sea. Argentina later declared the island part of their territory, despite the fact that few other sailors had ever reported seeing it. Throughout the years, several ships ventured out in search of Aurora Islands, yet none succeeded in locating it. Following numerous unsuccessful expeditions, by the early 20th century, the island was officially declared non-existent and was removed from maps. Some suggest the island's supposed discovery may have been strategically invented or maintained by Argentina to justify future territorial claims in the South Atlantic. Podesta Island was supposedly discovered by an Italian captain in 1879. He described it as a small landmass located off the coast of Chile, and for many years, it appeared on official maps. However, when modern expeditions finally set out to find it, they discovered nothing. Today, most historians agree that Podesta Island was likely a hoax, invented either by the captain himself or by subsequent mapmakers who unquestioningly reproduced the error. But perhaps the most famous hoax of them all was Pepys's Island. In 1684, English explorer William Ambrose Cowley claimed to have discovered a previously unknown island near the Falklands. He named it after Samuel Pepys, a powerful and influential English official, hoping that honouring him in this way would earn the explorer favour back home in Britain. For many years, Pepys's Island was featured prominently on nautical maps. Over time, however, significant doubts about its existence began to emerge. No one had reported seeing the island, and subsequent expeditions repeatedly failed to locate it. Eventually, historians concluded that Cowley had most likely either misidentified one of the Falkland Islands as a new discovery, or just fabricated it entirely to enhance his own reputation. In the age of exploration, the unknown was a goldmine for ambition. If you claimed to have found an island, people listened. Some explorers lied for money, others for fame, and some simply because they felt like it. So, many phantom islands, simple mistakes, others deliberate lies. However, there are also those islands that defy both explanations, lands reportedly seen, carefully mapped, and even visited, only to later vanish without a trace. These are the true mysteries, the cases that force us to question if we truly know what's out there. One of the strangest examples is Hy-Brasil, an island said to lie in the North Atlantic Ocean, west of Ireland, first sighted in 1325. For centuries, it appeared on maps and was described as a fog-covered realm full of riches, strange animals, and magic. Sailors claimed to have glimpsed it, and some even recounted landing there. One of the most famous encounters occurred in 1674, when a Scottish sea captain named John Nisbet claimed that his crew had found Hy-Brasil and met its inhabitants, mysterious robed figures who welcomed them with gifts before permitting them to leave. This intriguing story captured the imagination of many and embellished Hy-Brasil as one of the most prominent phantom islands. And yet, the account was simply not true. Remarkably, although the tale persisted for centuries, it was actually a work of fiction created by the Anglo-Irish writer Richard Head, who frequently used the island of Hy-Brasil as a setting for several of his works. By the 19th century, Hy-Brasil had disappeared entirely from maps. And this raises intriguing questions. Did it ever truly exist? Was it merely an optical illusion, or perhaps was it the result of just misidentification of another landmass? Another intriguing case is that of Saxonburg Island. First reported in the 17th century, this island in the South Atlantic was described by various explorers as a flat, volcanic landmass with rocky shores. Over the next 200 years, multiple captains claimed sightings of Saxonburg, some even producing detailed sketches of the island. But then something strange happened. In the 19th century, ships began returning with reports that the island had vanished. No land, no rocks, only endless ocean where Saxonburg once stood. Unlike other phantom islands that appeared briefly, once or twice, and then disappeared, Saxonburg remained consistently documented across multiple generations. So what happened? Well, some suggest that it may have been a drifting pumice raft formed by an underwater volcanic eruption. Others argue that it perhaps indeed was a real island that later sank beneath the waves or gradually eroded away. Similarly mysterious, there's Emerald Island, reportedly located in the icy, unforgiving waters of the Southern Ocean. It was said to rise sharply out of the waves like a jagged scar at the world's edge. Mariners called it Emerald Island, a name oddly unsuited to its cold and truly bleak reality. Yet the name stuck and quickly spread throughout the bustling taverns frequented by seafarers, capturing their imagination like wildfire. It all began in 1821, when Captain Nockels, master of the British sealing ship Emerald, claimed to have spotted the island during a voyage between New Zealand and Antarctica. His descriptions were vivid and precise. Snow-covered peaks scraped the sky, rugged cliffs loomed over crashing waves, and barren icy shores stretched as far as the eye could see. The coordinates were recorded, mapped, and soon simply accepted as fact. Over the subsequent decades, ships continued journeying to the region, driven by scientific curiosity, the promise of untapped resources, or just sheer greed. Some swore they had glimpsed it, a flash of dark rock against the endless white expanse of the sea. Others returned maddened from days of fruitless searching, insisting the island had been nothing but a phantom, a cruel joke played by the ocean itself. What makes Emerald Island so peculiar is that Captain Knuckles was far from the only person claiming to have spotted it. Over the years, other captains also reported sightings of that same snow-drenched landscape, always in the same area, always just out of reach. However, by the early 20th century, Emerald Island had become a challenge, an irresistible temptation for those obsessed with proving themselves against the impossible. Expeditions, both official and rogue, set out to claim what had already been mapped. Every single one failed. Some claimed the island had sunk, dragged beneath by tectonic forces or eroded away by time. Others whispered of darker fates, a place cursed to remain unseen, doomed forever to drift just beyond reach. Alright, so how could an entire island simply disappear from the face of the earth? And is such a thing even actually possible? While this sounds like something pulled straight from a sailor's nightmare, science does offer logical, albeit unsettling explanations. The most common culprit's erosion, a slow, merciless process powered by the relentless forces of winds, waves, and currents. Islands, particularly those composed of soft material such as sand or coral, are constantly vulnerable, gradually worn away. Over the years, especially during extreme weather events like hurricanes, typhoons, or tsunamis, large chunks of land can steadily just vanish. Even solid rock formations are not immune. Given enough millennia, they too can eventually succumb to nature's tireless assault. And then there's the very real threat of rising sea levels, a modern-day menace intensified by climate change. As glaciers melt and oceans expand due to warming temperatures, low-lying islands are literally being swallowed by the sea. The Pacific and Indian Oceans, in particular, are home to numerous atolls and small islands now teetering on the brink of submersion. Entire communities have already been forced to relocate, their homelands slipping beneath the waves, never to be seen again. Tectonic activity could also play a role in this mystery. The Earth's crust is a patchwork of shifting plates, constantly moving, colliding, and rearranging. Underwater earthquakes can cause land to subside abruptly, sinking below the surface in an instant. Similarly, volcanic islands, born from fiery eruptions, can be destroyed just as swiftly by the powerful forces that created them. Consider the case of Krakatoa in 1883. A massive volcanic explosion obliterated much of the islands, leaving behind only scattered fragments above the waterline. Isostatic rebounds and subsidence can also significantly reshape landscapes. When large ice sheets melt, the crust beneath them gradually rises, a process known as isostatic rebound. Conversely, regions previously uplifted by geological forces may slowly subside, pulling islands downward along with them. Even natural disasters like landslides can trigger rapid land loss. Submarine landslides, often resulting from earthquakes or volcanic activity, cause portions of the seabed to collapse, dramatically reshaping topography and causing islands to sink or fragment. For centuries, we've sought to map the world and accurately chart every landmass, coastline, and island. Yet time and again, we've encountered places that either shouldn't have been there or simply weren't there at all. Some of these phantom islands were honest errors arising from faulty navigation or optical illusions on the horizon. Others were deliberate fabrications invented for power, profit, or pure deceit. But the strangest cases, those islands that were seen, visited, mapped, and then inexplicably vanished, are the ones that continue to intrigue us and leave unanswered questions. Could some of these islands have truly existed only to vanish beneath the waves? Did sailors of old see something real, or were they simply deceived by tricks of light, weather, and the vast, unknowable ocean? Thank you for watching.